Welcome to the home of Florida's finest everything. Naples, Marco Island, and the Everglades. They call it Florida's Paradise Coast for a reason. Bask in 30 miles of soft white sand beaches, luxurious hotels, and stunning beachfront resorts with delectable dining experiences. Take advantage of warmth, relaxation, and endless outdoor adventures. When you want a Florida vacation that's exceptional in every way, only Paradise will do. Naples, Marco Island, and the Everglades. Florida's Paradise Coast. Plan your visit now at paradisecoast.com.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
What do I do in my life? Because a lot of people don't understand that, even in college, they say student athlete. That's false.
Yeah.
It's athlete. I mean,
Yeah.
You can't even work an internship. You can't have a job. They don't prepare you, at least when I was there, they don't prepare you for life after sports. So I've never had a job in my life.
Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And I have a favor, which sounds kind of harsh if we just met, but I'm assuming that most of you have been a part of this community for a hot minute. And so I gotta ask, are you subscribed to the podcast? Subscribing to the podcast you listen to regularly is one of the best things that you can do for hosts like me. It helps to support the show and the staff that works on it. It ensures that you never miss an episode when we drop a new one. And here's the cool thing about subscribing. If you do it and then you hate this show, just unsubscribe. It's one click away. In the meantime, if you're listening, we would so appreciate it if you would just tap that button and make it official. Hey guys, welcome back to the show and welcome to another episode in our Mastermind series. Today, we're taking a deep dive into building confidence and courage. And we're going to do that with wisdom and practical advice from 4 incredible guests I've been able to interview over the years. Starting off, my buddy Trent Shelton. He's sharing how to maintain confidence during setbacks and transform vulnerability into strength. Next, Michelle Poehler brings actionable strategies to confront your fears and boldly step outside your comfort zone. Then we're hearing from Reshma Saujani, founder of Girls Who Code. She's discussing how to embrace bravery over perfection and how risk-taking can unlock true confidence. And finally, country music superstar Tim McGraw joins us with powerful insights from his personal journey, exploring how courage and authenticity have shaped his success. Get ready to feel inspired and empowered. Let's jump in.
Grew up in New Orleans for a large portion of my life. About 7th grade, moved to Fort Worth, Texas. So I guess you can say that's where my adult childhood started. The youngest of 2 brothers, parents both in the household my whole entire life. So I had a great example of a mom and a dad. At 5 years old, though, that's when I started playing football. Having 2 other brothers is like no other choice. If they're in sports, it's just like, that's what I'm going to do with my life. So play football, basketball, baseball, track. Throughout my whole entire life, got a scholarship to play at Baylor, went to Baylor, and I had a good career. It wasn't a career that I feel like, I got honored as a Baylor legend, so I guess it was a great career, but still feel like it could have been better. I feel like, I know it was weird because I always felt like I was kind of an underdog still in that moment, even though I was shining. A lot of teachers say that to kids. It's like the chances are like 0.001% of someone making it to the NFL, and it's true, but I just feel like, if somebody really has their heart set on it, you tell them like it's a small chance, but you can make it. And so every time, I can name probably 10 times throughout my life where a coach or a parent or a friend told me, you're crazy. It only happens to certain type of people. And I felt like that certain type of person was me, and I believe that. I had great examples too, because even growing up in New Orleans, I stayed across the street from a Saints player, and I got to see him running the streets. His son, actually, Geno Atkins, is a Pro Bowler now. I got to babysit him, but it's crazy how it works. But I got to see him running the street, and it made it tangible for me. I got to see like a regular human being, because as a kid, you think these guys are superheroes. But I got to see like, oh, this is how he works, and I can actually do this. And my uncle, he's been coaching the NFL for 30 plus years. So I got to get that counsel from him, and I got to see Jerry Rice and all these guys at a young age. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. So that planted that seed that it was possible, and that's all that I needed. And so from Baylor, I was supposed to get drafted 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, something like that. It didn't happen. And so I'm like watching the draft, and, I guess to put it into terms where everybody can understand, it's like, just imagine you're waiting for that big call, right? Maybe it's a job interview, and you're just for sure that they're going to call you, but they never do. And I had to put on a poker face. My mom asking me, am I okay? And I'm saying, yeah. People are texting me, and I'm just masking the pain. And I get a call right after the draft. You're a high priority free agent, which I was. Your phone starts ringing off the hook. So the Colts, that was one of the teams, and they just won a Super Bowl. And Coach Dungy was a good friend of my uncle, and he's like, hey, he's a great guy. Go there. He's going to give you a fair shake. You're not going to make him because you're my nephew, but he's going to give you a fair chance. So I go there, and I performed great. I mean, I had the best preseason, definitely out of all the rookies. Probably, I want to say top in NFL. And it was just crazy because the third preseason game is when they usually play the starters for the first half, but the second half, they play the guys who they plan on making the team. They didn't play me at all. And so I'm like, this isn't right. Like, if they're not going to play me, they must be about to cut me. So I asked one of the veteran guys, he said, no, they're trying to hide you because they plan on cutting you and signing you to the practice squad, but they don't want you to keep getting these stats because another team, once they cut you, will pick you off of waivers and sign you. I'm around celebrities that I saw on TV, and I'm bumping elbows with people, and I get caught up in that lifestyle. And I got cut, 2 weeks there. And so I'm like, what do I do? Luckily, my friend that I knew him in college, we were roommates. And so he said, I'll take over the rent. Don't worry about it. I drive back to Texas. I'm there for a week. I keep myself inside my room because you got to realize it's September. And if I'm out in the streets in September, people know that I'm cut.
Yeah.
So I shelter myself in my mom's house because I didn't want to deal with people. And that was the first time where I felt like I was really running from my battle and not facing my reality. They called me back a week later, and that's my whole story in the NFL. I mean, I got cut 7-8 times, back and forth, 3 different teams, 3 different cities, unstable, not knowing, like, it's kind of like, we call it Terrible Tuesday. Terrible Tuesday is when they have waivers and when you get cut. So every practice, I'm nervous because I don't know if they're going to call and say, hey, bring your playbook and you're going home. So like any mistake, talk about pressure, any mistake, you could be gone.
Wow.
So it was really tough. My first feeling of not being good enough. And so what did I do? I masked my pain with things that I shouldn't have masked it with to cover up that because I didn't want to look in the mirror. And of course I was great enough, but I was just like, dang. And I got angry in my faith. I'm like, man, what? I could have just been something else. Like I didn't want to get this far. And like, what do I do in my life? Because a lot of people don't understand that, even in college, they say student athlete. That's false. Yeah. It's athlete. I mean, you can't even work an internship. You can't have a job. They don't prepare you, at least when I was there, they don't prepare you for life after sports. So I've never had a job. My third time getting cut, so my third team, so I'm with the Redskins. And in this process, I get Maria pregnant. That's when I was in Indianapolis in 2007. She gets pregnant. Tristan is born in 2008. I'm with the Seahawks at that moment. And just to be totally transparent, we weren't together. And so I was looking not at Tristan, but at the situation as a disappointment. Mm-hmm. I'm a pastor's son. Like, it's not supposed to happen like this. Me and Maria, we knew each other, but we didn't know each other like that. Yeah. And so I'm like, man, but fast forward, I realized that disappointment was my greatest rescue because Tristan was the first time in my life where I felt like something other than my life really mattered, right? Mm-hmm. Like somebody's going to follow my footsteps. Somebody's going to pay for the decisions I make or reap the benefits of the decisions I make. So the first thing I told my son was like, I don't want you to grow up to be like me. Of course he's a baby, he can't talk back, but that hurt me to the core. So that made me start thinking like, okay, as a man, what does that greatest you look like? Like, what do you want to leave for Tristan? He's going to follow your footsteps. As parents, listen to what I say, don't do as I do. And that's totally false, right? Mm-hmm. Kids are watching what you do. So that was the big thing for me as far as the road to change, the start. The second thing that happened that really started rehab time was my college roommate committed suicide.
Yeah.
And so one of my best friends, going to his service and realizing that like life is short. Mm-hmm. And when I left his service, I haven't even really talked about this because people might think it's weird, but I went to a cemetery and I walked around and I looked at tombstones and I realized that death has no preference. You see ages, you see, different races, different people. And I'm just like, I don't want to come here with an incomplete life.
Woo!
I wish I could tell a cool story of how this moment happened, but it wasn't. I was just being honest. Like I was in my mom's house in my room and I was looking around. I was looking around all my football pictures, Tristan's around the room. And I'm just like, it's rehab time. And I didn't know what rehab time was. For me, rehab meant putting the strength back into a weakness. I said, when you're hurt in sports or you get in a car wreck, you go to rehab. Rehab sucks, but if you do rehab right, you'll come back stronger than what you were. So I said, it's rehab time, mind, body, and soul. The very first thing was fitness for me because I knew I really could control that. I hated to read books. I said, I'm going to pick up a book.
Said the guy who writes books.
Exactly. Now, right? It's crazy how life works.
Isn't it?
I was just talking about this the other day. I was like, I would never pick up a book. Like, it's crazy. Even in personal development, like, it wasn't really, because you were like, who do you look up to? I was like, well, I have people now, but growing up, it was like rappers, you know, like just being honest, like Jay-Z, Master P, like that's who I looked up to. So, and it's funny because I went in my room and one of the first books I had was from Master P. Like, it was just super funny. But, so that happened and I started going to the gym, started reading, started getting into my word more. And over time, I started to share this journey, right, with people. I was living rehabish. I'll be honest. I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, trying to figure out my way in this process. And as I started to share my journey, people started to catch on. People started to see it. People started to respond. And the fast forward, maybe, 2-3 years later, I had my very first speaking engagement, not very first, but major speaking engagement. Didn't want to do it. I'm still trying to play arena football. My mom didn't want me to go to New Orleans because she has her thing about New Orleans. But I was like, I'm going with the voodoo. And I begged the coach to let me come Saturday. I was supposed to come Friday. I said, I got a speaking engagement. Just let me do it. Didn't want to do the speaking engagement. My friend talks me into it. Make a long story short, get on stage. 5 minutes seemed like 5 hours. And in that moment, 5,000 kids, by the way. So kids are a whole nother story talking to. I tell people all the time, like, closure is something like just know that you deserve better. That could be your closure. Just move on with your life. That could be your closure because you could be waiting on something that will never happen.
Yes, right? Yeah.
So reality then release is burning those bridges so you can build the bridges in your life that need to be built. So what's that environment that you're in? Does that environment grow you? I always say it's like having a beautiful flower, right? You take the most beautiful flower in the world that has the potential to be that. If you put that flower in the wrong environment, that flower is not going to grow.
Yeah.
I don't care how much potential that flower has. And a lot of us, we're that flower. We have all the potential in the world. We're just in the wrong environment.
Yeah.
And the last part is repair. Repair is the hard part, but it's about getting down to the root issues in your life. So many people want surface level solutions, right? It's like, give me a quick fix. Tell me to leave this situation. But say a relationship. Somebody gets out of a bad relationship, but then they get into another relationship that's bad. So my question is, I can tell you, hey, remove yourself from the pain, but why do you keep putting yourself in the pain? And a lot of times that reason is that seed. Maybe it's how you saw your parents, or maybe it's a bad relationship at first. So I'm really big on removing those bad seeds, digging up those bad seeds and replacing new seeds in that place, right? A new lifestyle, a new habit, whatever it may be. And that's the rehab process. That's the process that I always coach from, teach from even people who don't know it. And I do that with my life every single day. It was one of my first speaking engagements. My brother, he's a coach, so he had a connection. It was out in Whitney, which is not too far from here, ISD. And I go there, I speak for free. I reach out to the coach. I'm like, hey, as a speaker, y'all should listen to this too, because I'm like, hey, like, bring me in. Like, I'm just trying to speak as much as I can because I just know if I get in front of people, then the other opportunities will come.
Absolutely.
So I get there and I sit down. I'm wearing, of course, I have tattoo sleeves. I'm wearing my hat backwards. I have like just, a shirt and some jeans, some Jordans on. I sit at the little VIP table that's reserved. And I sit down, this lady, I can just feel her like looking at me, like just right here. Just don't pay her no mind. I get up, I speak, tear it down. I sit back down. She taps and she says, I have to apologize. She said, I like prejudged you. Like I didn't, once you got up to speak, I'm like, oh, he's the speaker? And she's like, I've never been impacted like that in my life. And so I promised myself from here on out that I'm going to break any stereotype.
Wow.
And I'm going to be myself on stage. So nobody can ever say, oh, just because it's not even not being black, but just because you have tattoos or you look a certain way, or like you said, as a woman, I'm going to make sure that I break the stereotypes so you never judge anybody again.
Yeah. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Y'all know I love therapy. I think I've done every kind of therapy at this point, and I know how important it is. But one of the coolest things to have seen over the last few decades is how so many of the stigmas surrounding mental health have shifted and changed. When I was 14, I went to therapy for the very first time, and that was because my brother had passed away after a long and harsh battle with mental illness. And I remember when he was a teenager how taboo it was to talk about struggling with your mental health or to be seeing a doctor. But over the last 10 years, BetterHelp has revolutionized therapy because they made it fully online, affordable, and convenient. BetterHelp serves over 5 million people worldwide. It's easy to switch therapists at any time, so if you're new to therapy, this is a great way to get started. We're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/Rach to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Rach.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
I thought it was going to be easy to come up with a list of 100 things to do, and my idea was to do them consecutively. So that phrase of do something that scares you every day, which is something I ignored my entire life and avoided, suddenly I said yes to that. And like I said, I thought it was going to be easy to put together a list of things, and then it was not that easy. It turns out we avoid thinking of our fears and the things that we don't want to do. We always put our mind on things that we actually want to do and excites us. So it was really hard to put together a list of 100 things. And what I did is I asked people around me to help with ideas. And what this ended up being was a project more about living life to the fullest and doing the things that are outside of my comfort zone, but I'm curious about, or they can bring me a huge benefit.
Like what?
Wow. So mainly my goal was to become a more confident person. So I spent my entire life saying no thanks to everything, every new opportunity, everything that was the unknown for me. And so I started saying yes to for example, I'll tell you a few of the things that I did. So first I started by doing more simple things like trying food I've never tried, like oysters, which I hated, but I still did it. And then I started going into a little bit more harder things. Like, for example, I went on Times Square and I did this challenge of dance like no one's watching, and I went all out. And all of these experiences I was recording and put it on my YouTube channel so people could see. And then I started, when the project went viral, so around day 40 it went viral, I started getting a lot more pressure and attention. So I started to challenge myself to face bigger fears. So for example, I did posing nude in front of a drawing class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was, I think, one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
But I did skydiving and holding a tarantula and crushing a wedding in New York, like a really elegant wedding, and all sorts of creative things. I spent my entire life crashing weddings in Venezuela, where I'm originally from. I think that was part of the culture. As a teenager, I would just go to any wedding from, of course, people that I know or in my community. But then I got to the United States, and that's not like that's not all right. Like you need to be on the list. You need to have a place on, somewhere to sit. Whereas where I come from, we don't have assigned seating or anything like that. So, and it's all about just dancing the entire night. There are no speeches or anything. So coming here and realizing the difference in culture and how I would feel by crashing a wedding here, I wanted to have that experience. So I went, I did it. I danced with the bride. I ate, I did everything. And then I left. And it was like one of the best videos that I uploaded. People were loving it. And then the bride found out. And then the fear. That's when the fear came, because they were not happy. They asked YouTube to take down my video. And one of my biggest fears throughout my entire life has been to be by myself. So because I grew up being very fearful. I always thought that I needed people to protect me and people around me to make sure that I don't get lost, that nothing happens to me. And so this project was really hard for me, mostly the fears related to being by myself and being more independent. And I realized that that's where I needed to put more attention. And so what I did is I divided fear into 7 categories. So I realized that my fears were related, and I'll tell you the 7 categories. So it's danger, pain, loneliness, control, disgust, rejection, and embarrassment. And as I was facing the fears, what I realized is that with fears related to, for example, embarrassment, like dancing in the middle of Times Square, doing crazy things, all of that, I'm not too afraid of those. But when it comes to loneliness, that, like I was saying, terrified. So I started challenging myself to like go to a different city for a whole weekend by myself, or go to a Broadway show by myself, to the movies, to eat alone, all these things. I think that expectations play a huge role when it comes to fear. Sometimes when we think it's going to be the worst one, we really never know until we do it. And it happened to me holding the tarantula. So holding a tarantula was something that was not even part of my list. Like I was that afraid of it that I was like, I'm going to face 100 fears and ignore that I'm afraid of tarantulas.
Yes.
But then one day I visited my brother in college, and his roommate had a tarantula. I mean, so how could I say no to that? And I was in the middle of the project. I just went viral. So I really wanted to challenge myself. I did it and absolutely enjoyed it, to the point that I considered getting a tarantula for myself.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then I did, for example, trapeze. So I thought that trapeze was going to be okay and not that scary, like mostly fun.
Yeah.
And then I almost got like a panic attack when I was about to do, like when I was already in that ledge and about to jump. I was freaking out. So expectations play a huge role. And every single day I thought, this is going to be the worst fear. And then I did it, and it was not the worst. It was not as bad as I had it in my mind. So the next day I was like, no, this is the worst one. And then I did it, and it was not the worst again. And so that helped me build my confidence over time to realize that it is actually never as bad as we have it in our heads. Like we really blow this out of proportion. And so one tool that helps me really understand the reward and the benefit behind all the fear and behind the negative thoughts is, and the typical question that people ask you when you're about to do something scary and you're thinking about it, and people are like, hey, Rachel, but seriously, what's the worst that can happen? Think about it. And that question is supposed to motivate you, right? To take action. And what I realized during the project is that it's quite the opposite. Because when they ask you what's the worst that can happen, your mind goes to
your mind's
worst.
Like, I got an idea.
Yeah. Yes. So that never motivated me. And so I kept thinking about it. And then I flipped the question around, and then I asked myself, hey, but what's the best that can happen? And when you think of the best that can happen, then your mind goes towards the rewards. And then I learned from psychology that this is an actual theory. And then when you focus on the reward, you're more likely to take action. So that is the one tool that helps me now every time I want to take a risk. I ask myself, what's the best that can happen? I think of all the rewards, and then I'm very excited to take action. But what I realized is that it's easier when you change the question from now what to yes and. So yes and acknowledges what you did, and then you build on top of that. And of course, my intention was not to continue the project because it had an expiration date. So what I did is I changed the name from 100 Days Without Fear to Hello Fears. Hello Fears is more of a movement. It's more inclusive. It's not about me. It's about anybody that wants to, become a braver person. And it doesn't have an expiration date. So I changed the name of, this, I guess, movement or project. And I started now analyzing what happened during the project and how my life started to change. And what I did is I realized that there's this concept of everyday courage, because it's not about those big fears that we face once a year or once a month, like going skydiving or taking a trip to, hiking a mountain like you just did. It's also about the daily courage. And so I started highlighting that. And then I started another 100-day project called 100 Days of Courage. And this was more of an illustrated project I did on Instagram, where I started to highlight daily things or small acts of courage. For example, being the first one to clap at an event, right? That takes a little bit of courage. Or complimenting someone on the subway or on the street about their shoes. For me, that takes a lot of courage. I'm not the one to break the ice that way. So I started just illustrating this and started talking more about it. And now Hello Fears is more of a platform where I continuously challenge myself on the day-to-day and share my experiences and highlight other people that are doing the same. And now with the speaking also, I realized that the comfort zone is something so personal, and what might be very scary, disgusting, or uncomfortable for me might be what excites someone else the most. So at the beginning, I realized that people were judging my fears, and they were saying things like, oh, that's not scary. Like I do that on the day-to-day. For example, I got a Brazilian wax as day number 15. That was terrifying for me.
It's so painful too. So painful.
Wait, and so uncomfortable. Like that moment. Like, oh my God. No. Yeah. So and that I felt so judged by other people that whenever they shared their fears with me, even though I think it's ridiculous, like people tell me I haven't been on an elevator for 11 years, things like that. I'm like,
wow,
whoa,
crazy.
Wow. Crazy. Yeah, but I cannot judge anybody because we all have very personal fears, and it goes back to where we're from and how we were raised. So what I realized is that people think that the enemy of success is failure, right? So they try to avoid failure at all costs. And what I realized is that the enemy of success is actually comfort. And that thought that you described is a very comfortable thought to have. Yeah, I'd just rather stay in my comfort, because you know what? I was achieving things throughout my entire life before doing this project. I got to the school that I wanted. I married the man, like the man of my life. Like I was achieving so many things because you know what? I had a checkbox. It was society's checkbox, and I wanted to check it, and I wanted to do it the best way possible. But it was not enough for my ambitious self. So I had so many other things I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to be someone. And it was only when I decided to choose, what's the word? Discomfort. Yeah. When I decided to choose discomfort, that's when I started to actually accomplish my big dreams.
NetCredit is here to say yes, because you're more than a credit score. Apply in minutes and get a decision as soon as the same day. Loans offered by NetCredit or lending partner banks and serviced by NetCredit. Application subject to review and approval. Learn more at netcredit.com/partners. NetCredit. Credit to the people.
Every day is a chance to move forward, so why settle for gear that holds you back? Rhone delivers technical fabrics that breathe, stretch, and adapt, keeping you sharp and comfortable. From work to workouts, Rhone's advanced fabrics fight odor, keep you cool, and move with you. With wrinkle-release tech and a tailored fit, you'll always look as good as you feel. Upgrade your wardrobe, because when your clothing performs, so do you. Rhone. Performance apparel fit for progress. New customers get 20% off your first order at Rhone.com with code RHONE20.
You know, my parents came here as refugees in 1973. So I was the quintessential good girl. I felt like they had sacrificed and gone through so much in this country, and life for them was already a struggle that I couldn't be an added stress, right? I needed to get straight A's, work at the right places, not give them a lot of trouble. And so I feel like very early on, I started thinking more about what they wanted rather than what I wanted. Probably from the time I was like 13. I know this sounds cheesy, but like, I love this country because it literally saved my parents' life. And like, I knew that I wanted to do something to give back. But then I found myself after I graduated college and then law school with like $300,000 in student loan debt. And so I naively thought like I'd go work for the man, in a law firm. I'd pay off the student loans in like a year or two. I clearly didn't read like the interest rates and I got stuck.
Yeah.
And I kind of found myself in my early 30s being like, is this it? Like, is this my life? When you don't come from a lot of money and you have that debt, you feel like you have to make choices to sacrifice or that to like get to your impending life that are in the here and now.
And so you're in law school or are you out when you decide that, okay, you're out?
I'm 33 years old. I'm in a job that I hate. And now it's been like a minute, right? It's been like 10 years, right? And I'm miserable and I'm coming home every night from my job, like drinking a very large glass of wine and just asking myself like, how did I get here? And I had never felt that sad or that depressed before. And I remember one day I'm sitting there and my best friend calls me and I go in this like windowless conference room and I just start crying. And like through the tears, I hear her say like, just quit. And it's such a simple thing to say, but I didn't feel like I had agency to quit. Here I was in this job that people would dream to have. Who was I to like feel like I didn't quote like it, or it wasn't what I was meant to do, or what I was put on this earth to do, or what God had destined for me. And I felt that way. And so she gave me the permission to quit, and I quit. And then I ran for United States Congress, which was in that, like, if you wanted to make a difference in your community, like, run for office. And I probably worked on my first campaign when I was 18 years old. And so, I had knocked on doors, I had gone to rallies, I'd been an activist or an organizer. And I loved to debate. I felt like I had some good ideas. And, it's funny, every time I participated in the political process, I always heard people say, well, women should run for office. Well, women should run for office and more young women should run. So I was like, great, like I'm ready to run. And it's sometimes it's so funny, Rachel. Sometimes it's like what you don't know is it's sometimes better to walk into things and not know everything.
100%.
And I was like, yeah, like I can go shake every hand. And I got in a Democratic primary and I ran against someone who had been there for 18 years. I just didn't think she was all that effective. And I had some ideas and I just thought I could shake every hand and meet every voter and figure it out. And I lost miserably. Like it was like a shellacking. And by now, like I had quit my job. So I worked for a year ran through my savings. So I'm broke. I'm like humiliated. I had angered everybody in the Democratic establishment because I didn't wait my turn. And I have like no contingency plan. I'm also like one of those people, I don't know if you can relate. I don't like people feeling sorry for me.
Absolutely.
When I would meet people would be like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I had thought for so long in my life that if I did something and it didn't work out, that it would literally break me. And so it was a shock to be sad, but be like, oh, okay, I can go find another day. And it was this massive aha moment for me that like, I can live my life differently. I can take more risks. I can get rejected. I can fail. And at the same time, because, when I was running that campaign, Rachel, I was so joyful. I was so happy. Every day was like a new day of just feeling like I was alive. I was doing things I had never done before. I was in front of audiences I was figuring things out. It was all hard and exhausting, but I felt very alive. I had for so long in my life been giving up before I tried and be like, oh, I can't do that. Like I talked myself out of so many things. And because again, I thought if I didn't work out, I wouldn't be able to recover. And it was that fear of not being able to recover that held me back from doing things that I knew deep in my heart that I wanted to do, or I had an idea to do. So this was a big juncture in my life for me because it shifted my thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
It shifted my thinking to realize that, oh, you could try something and it could, like, your biggest dream, and it could not work out, and you could have enjoyed the experience and felt alive and be ready for the next obstacle or journey. You know, since my parents came here as refugees, I've literally had a job since I was 12, like Baskin Robbins, retail, like you name it, telemarketing. And I really believe in the American dream. Like, I really believe that, like, through hard work, through education, that you can, like, march up into the middle class. And my family is really a reflection of that. And so when I was running for office, I'd go into these New York City public schools, and I'd see boys, computer labs full of boys learning to code, not a girl in sight. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, I knew Silicon Valley was like a boys club, but I didn't know that started in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand it. So I started kind of every day. I got a job as, working in government. But during my lunch break and at night, I would go meet with people who were professors teaching computer science, teachers that were teaching science and education, like organized, like women. Like, I just wanted to learn everything there was about why were women not in technology? Why were less than 18% of the technology force female? Why were, computer science classes in high school or middle school, only 20% of them were girls? Like, why? And kind of came up with this idea about teaching girls to code in summer camps that were free. And here's the thing, Rachel, I didn't know how to code. I did not.
I didn't know that about you. How funny.
I was a poli-sci speech communications major. I was terrified of math and science. But because I ran that campaign and tried something, and it didn't break me, I suddenly felt like, wow, I could take on other challenges about things, not be a perfectionist, and it be okay. And so it didn't occur to me that, like, I had to learn how to code and be an expert in a subject to start something. What I felt like was I needed to have passion and the will to want to make a difference and want to create opportunity for girls. And that's where I was coming from.
I've always been an athlete. I grew up being an athlete. Look, athleticism is in my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a professional baseball player. My uncle was a professional baseball player. So it's been a part of sort of my thought process since early in my years, before I even realized who my dad was, which is a whole other story, up through now. So I tried to stay in shape, and it was always part of my routine to work out. But I went through a period of time after having kids and being really busy on the road that I sort of fell out of the routine of taking care of myself and got a little bit more involved in the road life and staying up really late and getting up really late and not taking care of myself in the meantime. I took my daughters, I don't know, about 10, 11 years ago, I took my daughters, Faith and I, to a holiday movie, and I had just been in a film and didn't realize that the trailer of that film was going to be on before we started watching this film. And I'm sitting there with my daughters, and the first trailer that comes on is the movie that I was in, and the first image up was a huge picture of me, or a scene of me on the screen, and those screens are really big, but my face filled the entire screen. And I was sort of shocked. They say the camera adds 10 pounds, so there must have been about 20 cameras on me at the time. And my daughter looked over at me and says, "Geez, Dad, you look really big. You need to do something."
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the impetus. I mean, there were a lot of things going on at the time that were pushing me in that direction anyway, but that was what put me over the top. And it was a realization that, I have a pretty darn good life. I'm at the top of my career. I've been fortunate to have so many things and opportunities put in my path, and I'm not taking advantage of them like I should. I'm not taking care of myself, which in turn allows me to take care of the people that I love. And I wanted to be around for my kids. I wanted to see my daughters grow up and see what they made out of their lives, and be around for their kids, and be active and in it enough to be able to do things physically and actively with my grandchildren somewhere down the line. So it was a sort of a big picture thought process that turned into a day by day implication or implementation, I guess I should say. It started out for me as just getting up every day and walking. I mean, that was just really a part of what I decided to do. It's just get moving every day and try to be as consistent as possible. And look, like I said before, it's in my DNA, so I'm certainly probably a little more hardwired to be extreme in what I do. But the way I've done it and the way we lay it out in the book, you can find ways to start, whether you've been in shape before or never started to work out in your life. You can find ways to start and keep going. And for me, it's about consistency. I mean, anything that you do is consistent. And it's the best thing that I found. Of course, it's good for your body. It's good for your longevity. It's good for your how long you'll be around to be there for your children and your kids and your family and the people you love and your friends. But it's also so mentally rewarding. And it puts you in a really good place in your head. Look, I fail all the time. I'm constantly falling down. I'm constantly making the wrong decisions. I'm letting people down all the time. But what I found out through my journey and through my fitness and what it's done for me mentally is that, the times that I have my lows or I hit my low points or I make the wrong decisions or I hit the ditch, I think I'm able to get back to a place where I need to be a lot quicker. And I have go-to plans that if I'm getting out of hand or if I feel like that I really have something coming up that I really want to get into, or really the first couple of years of trying to dial in my fitness and drop some weight and transform my body a bit. I found a diet that worked for me, and I'm pretty, structure driven. I mean, there's a part of me that rebels against structure, but that's also the part of me that really needs structure in my life to be able to do the things that I need to do. So what I found is I mean, and in my book we put some of these things in there, but gosh, I started doing almost the same meal just about every day. I would start with oatmeal in the morning, and then I would do tuna and avocado for lunch, and then I would do grilled chicken, broccoli, and quinoa for dinner. And I did that probably at least 5 nights a week, every week for a couple of years. It was sort of my go-to diet. But I also, I love a cheeseburger. So I want to have a cheeseburger every now and then. So what I learned to do is sort of earn the indulgences. When you want an indulgence, go out and earn it, and I put extra time in. And that's sort of the way I approach my diet. And I guess a lot of times if you get your fire burning when the way that you need it burning, where it's really constantly working for you, it allows you to have those days even more that you can sort of cheat a little bit. We talk about that some of the days where we don't get a chance to work out or don't get a chance to work out as hard as we really want to, that we're sluggish on stage that night. And we get asked the question all the time. So certainly when we have, sort of opening acts or new people on the road with us that haven't seen the schedule that we keep. I mean, gosh, when we're on tour, when we're on the road, we literally do 3 workouts a day.
Wow.
Now, not everybody does that, but a majority of us do that. We'll start in the morning, and mostly it's with stretching and yoga in the mornings to really – it's a long walk, stretching and yoga, just to get our bodies warmed up and stretched out. But it's not it's more active yoga, I guess, where there's some muscle building involved with it. And then after lunch – or before lunch, we usually run the steps in the stadiums or the arena wherever we happen to be playing, or run the lawn in the amphitheaters that we're playing. And that's our midday thing. And then after that, we have lunch, and then we take a little bit of break, and everybody rest a little bit. And then usually around 3:30 or so in the afternoons when we start our sort of, it's not really, we call it CrossFit, but it's not really classic CrossFit. It's a combination of sort of, functional fitness and throwing things around in the afternoon, and that's our third workout of the day. And if we don't do that, if we don't get those in, we feel it on stage, but we look around sometimes at night while we're on stage and see the energy that we have and the energy which transfers into the audience, and it's sort of a symbiotic relationship when that happens. And we know that the work we put in that day is really what makes our show what it is. And that's what we explain to artists or other acts or other crews and bands that come out on the road with us, and they ask, how can you put all of that work in during the day and have enough energy for the night? And I said, well, we've come to realize that if we don't put that work in get that work in during the day that we don't have the energy that we needed. I always have something to learn. Feeling like I want to live up to the success that I've had and try to get my abilities equal to what I think my abilities as I see them equal to what the perception is of what I do. I always want to work harder and learn more. I mean, I guess it goes back to the athlete in me that I always feel like that there's another Super Bowl in me. So I want to keep working hard in order to get the opportunity to do that. And now, I feel like, I feel fortunate, grateful, lucky in a lot of ways to have had the avenue of success that I've had, and the doors open up for me that I've had open up for me, and the life that I've had. And certainly, gosh, country music has given me everything good in my life. I mean, I wouldn't have married and had the family that I have with my incredibly perfect wife that I had if it wasn't for country music. So I feel like I owe a lot to country music, and I owe a lot to my fans, and I owe a lot to myself to work harder. I feel like I'm just now understanding what it is that I do and how to do it. And then there's the flip side of, my children being young during those times. And now that they're 22, 21, and almost 18 years old, I kind of want to keep doing it because I want them to enjoy it as young adults, and see what it is that I do, and see how hard I work, and maybe set an example for them to work hard in their lives, which they all do. That's really when you grow, and I've done that, and sometimes probably I've done it subconsciously, thinking that I had the confidence to go in and do it, and then sometimes, that feeling that you get sometimes when you feel like, oh my gosh, I've stepped in over my head.
Absolutely.
But those are the moments that you sort of feel that panic inside your gut, but you continue to do it and you continue to go, that you find a different place and a different gear and a different level that you can reach. And gosh, that's happened to me plenty of times working with fantastic actors. I mean, not only that, but getting on stage with my wife, and I'm an average singer at best, but to sing harmony, which I can't do naturally at all, but to learn how to sing harmony with my wife, who's one of the best singers on the planet, that is one of the biggest things that has improved my career, I think, more than anything, is to learn to sing with her. She's taught me so much as a singer, and she's an instinctive singer who doesn't really, it just comes naturally to her to step out there and just put on a great show and sing. For me, it's funny because she's sort of the type A and the bass and the rock in our family when it comes to everyday life and real life, I guess. But when it comes to work, she likes to be spontaneous, and because it all comes so natural to her. And I like everything, and I'm type A when it comes to work. I like everything on a schedule, be in the same place every night at the right times when you're performing, all those sorts of things. So she's taught me to loosen up a little bit on stage and be a little more spontaneous, and maybe I've taught her to at least be where the lights are supposed to be when we're on stage at the same time. So I've learned so much from her by stepping outside of my comfort zone and learning how to sing a little differently.
The Rachel Hollis Podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
This season, let your shoes do the talking. Designer Shoe Warehouse is packed with fresh styles that speak to your whole vibe without saying a word. From cool sneakers that look good with everything to easy sandals you'll want to wear on repeat, DSW has you covered. Find a shoe for every you from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, New Balance, and more. Head to your DSW store or visit dsw.com today.